Before you even go to see the plane, there are some basic facts that you should gather. You'll want to know the aircraft's make, model, year of production, serial number, and registration or N number. Next, you'll need the aircraft's total time, as well as the time on the engine and propeller. It's also important to know where the last overhaul was performed. You should find out the date of the last annual inspection, transponder check, and IFR certification, as well as what components have recently been repaired or replaced. Ask the owner about how the airplane has been operated and stored. Has it been a rental aircraft in the past? Has it been hangared or stored outside at a tie-down? What is the condition of the exterior and interior? Most aircraft listings use a 1 to 10 scale to describe the aircraft's exterior and interior condition. Unfortunately, the seller's idea of an 8 or even a 6 may be quite different than yours, so don't give too much credence to these numbers. Pictures will help show the condition of the plane before you go see it, but seeing it in person is the only real way to evaluate it for yourself. Finally, get a complete listing of all installed equipment, STCs, and modifications to the aircraft. When you do your inspection, you'll want to examine everything you can without taking the plane apart. The best place to start is with the logbooks, especially since the current owner can send you copies of the logbooks before you even go to see the plane. When you get the logbooks, read through them carefully and take notes on the following areas. First, are the logbooks complete? Follow the dates of the entries carefully to make sure that they document the aircraft's entire history, from brand new until the most recent work. Examine the logbooks carefully for any history of damage to the aircraft. A damage history can have a substantial impact on the aircraft's value, depending on the type of accident and the quality of the repair. Damage history on older aircraft will have a much lower impact to the value than it would on a relatively new plane. If you intend to purchase any aircraft that has a damage history, it's very important to have the aircraft carefully inspected to ensure that the repair was done properly and in accordance with all FAA regulations. Next, check to see if the aircraft has been regularly maintained. Aircraft require regular, routine maintenance in order to stay airworthy. Look for things such as oil changes, spark plug maintenance, tires, and brakes. If the current owner has been performing oil analysis at each oil change, you can examine the analysis report to identify any trends in the amount of metal in the oil. Oil analysis is a great way to learn about the health of the engine. A single sample doesn't tell you much, but a series of samples can help you identify wear trends within the engine. The oil change entries can also tell you how often the aircraft was flown. Which brings us to our next question: how regularly has the aircraft been flying? Aircraft stay at their best when they fly regularly. Flying keeps corrosion from building inside the engine and ensures that the plane doesn't get neglected. While low-time aircraft can be in better shape than high-time aircraft, it can cost a lot of money to get any plane that hasn't flown in a while into airworthy condition. The logbooks are the official history of the aircraft, so the entries should be very thorough. Each year, the aircraft should have an entry that indicates that an annual inspection was completed. You should also see detailed entries for every maintenance occurrence, indicating exactly what was done and what parts were used. Without detailed entries, including part numbers and serial numbers, you won't be able to tell if current and future airworthiness directives apply without direct inspection of the component. Check the logbooks to make sure that all current airworthiness directives have been complied with. The FAA issues airworthiness directives, or ADs, on aircraft, engines, and components that are found to have an airworthiness issue. They're similar to automotive recalls, except that the owner is responsible for correcting the problem. The logbooks should have an AD compliance log, which lists each AD, the date it was complied with, who did the work, and when it needs to be complied with next. If you really want to be an educated buyer, get your own AD list for the type of aircraft that you're interested in. Then, every time you review an aircraft, check the logbooks to make sure that all the ADs have been done. You can get a free list of ADs for any aircraft from the FAA's website. You also want to watch out for ADs that apply to the aircraft but aren't due yet. Sometimes the cost of complying with an AD can motivate someone to sell the aircraft rather than invest in fixing the problem when the AD comes due. If you're going to inherit required maintenance like this, you should find out about it in advance and include it in your price negotiations. Conduct your inspection in the same way you would your normal pre-flight, except much more thoroughly. Step back at least 10 feet and look at the aircraft as a whole. Is it sitting appropriately on its gear? Make sure that all of the flying surfaces appear symmetrical. We're looking for signs of damage and misalignment that we might miss on a close inspection. Then conduct your normal walk around. Pay particular attention to things such as dents, fuel leaks, corrosion, and make sure that all of the hinged surfaces are operating properly and smoothly. Then come back to the front of the plane to evaluate the engine. Now, if the owner is willing to take the cowl completely off for you, that's a great bonus because you can see the engine as a whole. But even if he won't, on something such as this Cherokee 140, it's easy just to hinge the upper part of the cowl open and we can see everything we need to this way. Start at the top of the engine, looking at the engine's baffling system. This controls the cooling airflow for the engine, and it's important that it doesn't have any obvious air gaps and that it's flexible and in good condition. Then move to the back of the engine and look at all of the components, hoses, and electrical wiring. We want to make sure that they look clean, secure, and in good condition without any significant chafing. Then we go to the bottom of the engine and evaluate the exhaust system. Now, in the exhaust system, it's very important to make sure that there aren't any exhaust leaks. And exhaust leaks are generally found by looking at the joints in the system and looking for dusty marks which indicate that the gases are escaping there. Then look at the fuel lines going through the firewall and fuel pump. What we're looking for here are blue stains, which are generally the indication of a fuel leak. And finally, look at the overall engine for signs of oil leakage. Now, in a mid to high time engine, a little bit of oil leakage is common, but you want to make sure that there isn't anything significant. When you're done with the engine, move to the front of the plane and evaluate the prop. Now, on a fixed pitch propeller such as this Cherokee has, the only things we can really evaluate again are overall condition to make sure that it doesn't have any significant bends and it doesn't look like any repair work has been completed. You also want to make sure that there aren't any nicks or cracks in the prop. But if it is a variable pitch propeller, you also want to look closely at the hub. If there's any oil leakage from the hub, this can indicate that there's a problem with the seals, and an overhaul on a variable pitch propeller can be very expensive. Now that we've finished our walk around, let's go flying. Once you've taken a look at the engine and propeller, climb inside and check out all the aircraft systems. The best way to do this is to do a run-up check followed by a short flight. Step through everything on the run-up checklist and write down all of the readings such as magneto drop, oil pressure, fuel pressure, and vacuum pressure. You should also test the engine at full throttle and write down the static RPM that the engine reaches. After you get back, you can check with your mechanic to see if the numbers are appropriate for the aircraft. Your first test flight should be from the right seat, with the owner in control of the aircraft. This will let you focus on testing every system, test each radio for clarity, and check the navigational systems for accuracy and operation. Make sure that all control systems function smoothly and properly. Finally, try flying the plane yourself to see how smoothly the controls operate. Hold the yoke loosely to see if the plane tends to fly level or falls off to one side. During any flight test, the owner should be the pilot in command at all times. And it's usually best to let the owner land the aircraft. Remember that you're flying a new aircraft and the last thing you want to do is damage the plane during your test flight. Go for it.